Hi everybody, Monday on Astral Oracles. If you're keeping up with the other channel, Mind the Wild, I just channeled water and I essentially just turned the camera around. So I'm out here. This is Helm's Deep, this body of water, which gave name to the place in the Lord of the Rings. And up here is the Iron Head. It's called a hill with these kind of gnarly, trolley growth. So it's quite enchanted and enchanting. And I thought I'd look into the Fae energies. And promote the stuff. Thank you for liking and sharing and subscribing and everything. And you can also either just follow over on Coffee, and you are also free to donate. But there's extra stuff over there. So getting back to the topic at hand, the Fae. You know, if you've been keeping up, I've been kind of looking into this gradually. Um, and I am very fascinated by how these, let's call them consciousnesses, beings, wills of nature that also exist on this planet are interacting with us. And then I've kind of noticed that some people just seem to have more fairy energy in them. And I've commented on this with channelers before. But I also, for instance, had a girlfriend when I was 18 who always painted these. They were quite beautiful, but like fairy creatures. She had like this whole visual world of herself that was clearly informed by the fairy world. And it was reminiscent of a style that an artist that's quite famous locally, who spent like half a century being locked up at the psychic ward in Aarhus, the big city in here, and then made like a lot of art that was like clearly informed by these weird fairy spirits that he was painting, and that kept communicating with him. And of course, he couldn't really handle the pressure. So they also seem to have like a relation to this sense of let's not call it dementia, but you know, out of mindness, of being disconnected and having a very hard time existing in this world. So that kind of strange frequency of alienation that exists within the fairy vibration. And I counted a lot of it in Hawaii, where it's this rough natural energy that seems to give birth to a lot of spirits. And let me not comment on the relationship I was in there, but that was also kind of laced with very heavy fairy energies, I'd say. So it just seems like in my life, at least, it's a pattern that repeats itself, that's reiterating, and that seems to hold a lot of resonance within my own being. Otherwise, I wouldn't, of course, be able to experience it on the outside. So that's the central question for me: is how are some humans connected to this fairy energy, this Fae energy? What does it consist of, and why do they act and affect us the way they do? And I think to channel them, it's a good question who you want to look into, like these strange worlds, right? And yeah, I actually haven't made up my mind before I started the camera, so that's of course also a part of the question. But I think, you know, one of the world traversers, so somebody like Odin or Hermes, and I've actually wanted to connect a lot to Hermes or Mercury lately. So let's try to get him to look into it, and that's because of, you know, again, his ability to adapt and shift and fold into all possible realities. So carrying communications from separate worlds. So without further ado, here is Mercury, the god Hermes, to talk about the Fae. Greetings, mortal beings. I bring tidings from worlds unknown to you that I have traveled. You know me by several names, but call me Mercury or Hermes, and you are close to the figure that I have been worshipped in and I've been concentrated in. So I traverse the worlds, and on the edge of your reality I sit and also guard the flocks of human beings, keeping you safe. And what am I keeping you safe from? Well, there are forces that work in realities very close to yours. Our friend here has been taught about the so-called chiral dimensions by the reptilians, these beings who also shift and warp into different spaces, phases, and continuities of reality. And these chiral dimensions, these are dimensions that connect to you laterally. So that is on the horizontal axis. There are many parallel realities that are very, very close to yours. And one of them is the fairy reality. So they are inhabiting the earth simultaneously with you. And so you also share these physical configurations, meaning they have attached themselves to a base configuration of earth that is similar to yours. And as earth changes and warps with you, it also changes and warps the outlook of the Fae, their energy and configuration. This means that they are very interested in seeking different outlets. See, as you, they are also explorers of this planet, looking into different ways they can use and utilize the presences, the matters, the materials, the animals there, much as you have. And so they also find that you are a suitable host for these experiments. That is, you may find that from these chiral dimensions, they are able to also energetically affect your genetic codes, what you know as your DNA. Affecting these genetic codes then results in a deep altercation of the vibrancy of the human being. This vibrancy then aligns so it's able to perceive, capture more of the Fae reality. That it is more expansive, it is less boundaried. Because what the Fae are essentially doing is that they are experimenting with trying to create wholeness. And to create wholeness, they also need to stir and integrate the shadows of human beings. That is why you also find that in your fairy tales where these beings are often appearing, indeed they have often informed and given birth to these fairy tales by serving ideas to these people that are creating them, that often have this fairy DNA already. But in these fairy tales, you find that there is much subconscious material that's being processed and expressed. So they aren't necessarily evil in that sense, but they are looking to restore energetically the wholeness of the planet. And they need to work with you to do so, because you are essentially antagonizing them in that respect. You are seeking to split apart the planet, that is, utilize it and turn it into segments. Just notice, if you look at a map, that all these boundaries don't really exist in the physical. They are mental constructs, and then they are manifested physically by you posing guards, building guard sheds and roadblocks and similar things to delineate a boundary. But the boundary is not there, and the Fae are aware of that. So you will find that the more consolidated your world becomes, the more secure, the more locked in, the more dominating, we could say, the more fear is stirred within you by these beings who work in an opposite direction, who work to restore you into wholeness. And they are very willing to shapeshift into the forms that you can relate to. So you may sense also with this hybrid program that there is an ability for them to create these spaces that exist in simultaneous realities at once. So you find yourself being abducted and being where you are at the same time. If we look at that famous description of an alien abduction in, we believe it is called Communion by Whitley Strieber, you will find that he is also transported to a place in the woods, that here he is also connecting to beings who may seem like the little men, the gnomes, or the dwarfs of the underworld, more than they necessarily seem like star beings descending from the sky. These are nuances, so we can shape ourselves with the faces that we want, is their message to you. And so you never quite know when you're interacting with a fairy. Sometimes it will be in human guise. Often these people who this human being describes, they are essentially, without knowing it, fae beings. In their presence, they have this upsetting effect. They don't necessarily harmonize, but they stir the feelings within human beings that will eventually bring them to wholeness. So in that way, their encounter with you is very important. And you may find that these human beings who leave an impression on you with a type of mysterious upset. You don't quite know where to place them, understand them. There seems to be something more, something occluded, almost occult about them. You will find that this is where the fairy energy is very expressed. And so take note of when people are meeting you. Often fairies will also do the work of angels. So somebody meeting you and filling your gas tank, offering you a meal, giving you guidance or directions. They are sometimes fairy beings that appear in your reality. They are also seeking communion. It is this communion, as you have also captured in your religious tradition. It is this communion that is sacred. It is this communication between the greater worlds that I inhabit. I, Hermes, Mercury, the world traveler, the messenger of the gods. I inhabit these worlds, and they seek to reach you and communicate with you. But I travel more on the... Our friend is missing the word, the upwards, downwards axis, the axis opposed to the horizontal. He's looking to find perpendicular, but he would be very happy. He's informing me if someone would give him the word in the comments. This is the axis that I usually travel from the heavens to below and from below to above. This is the axis that's captured in your spine, but in your heart space, notice how that is also seeking to connect to the world, to restore it through its 10 fingers, through these vibrant tools that you have. You heal, you interact, you reconfigure and change the world. And this is also essentially a process that seeks to change and restore. But often you find yourself veering in different directions. And this is where these connections to these other realms that I bring you, or other beings may bring you, are very helpful, because they serve as a reminder of your place within the all and your connection to it. So do look out for these mysterious beings that appear and that inform changes, awakening, stirrings within your being. Look for their sly and playful smile. Look for the wink in their eye, and know that you may just be addressed by a fairy that seeks to teach you something and to learn from you. Connection is everything, and I thank you for connecting to my energy this day, to connecting to the upper realms, to the chiral realms, the mysterious realms that exist beside you, and to connecting to yourself and your center. In all endeavors, I bring you the blessings of the gods. We send you our greetings and our love. Goodbye. I took something from that. At least it cleared up some mysteries for me. Very interesting. I hope the same applied to you. So may good fairies also bless your endeavors out there. Much love.